this is where things get terrible, so I don't know. I just love Madeline Miller's writing. Hey, I'm Gabrielle, and if you read the title of today's video, then you know I'm going to be talking all about my love for Madeline Miller and her two books. I recently read both of the books published by Madeline Miller, Song of Achilles and Circe, and I immediately knew, especially after reading Song of Achilles, that she was going to be one of my top new favorite authors. And as I sat and thought about it more and more, I realized how much of a genius she is and how beautifully she writes. So of course I just had to share it with everybody else. Just to give a little bit of a background on who Madeline Miller even is, she grew up in New York City and Philly. She attended Brown University in Rhode Island, where she got both her bachelor's and master's in classics. And she has been a teacher of Latin, Greek, and Shakespeare as well for, I believe, over 15 years. The Song of Achilles was actually her debut novel, and it was published back in 2011. Which is another reason, or maybe the first reason I should say, that proves how amazing she is. That like her debut novel could be so amazingly well written is just crazy. But she did say that it took her 10 years to write, so maybe that's why, because she was really thorough. So like I said, the Song of Achilles was published in 2011, and just to give you a synopsis of the story, actually doesn't follow the perspective of Achilles, the well-known Greek mythology figure, but it follows the life story of Patroclus. Now, Patroclus was born to one of the sons of the Greek Titans, whose name was Menelaus. And Patroclus was born to a not-so-great nation, and as a child, he was bullied a lot because he was smaller than the other kids, and it was claimed that his mother wasn't so smart, yet she was married to the king, so that was a bit embarrassing. So all the other kids would bully him. And as a child, there was a time where he was playing a dice game with another child, and that boy kept bullying him so much that Patroclus pushed him, and as a result, he killed the other boy because his head fell and he hit a rock as he was being pushed. So there are a lot of ways, I know it's well known in Greek mythology that like killing people or battling in war is like a point to receive honor, but in this case, killing someone for no reason is not just and was not an honorable way to protect yourself. He essentially had one of two options, where the boy's family could kill him and, you know, take a life for a life, or he could be exiled, which is what his father decided to do. So his father sent him to what I believe is called Thea. Thea is where King Peleus ruled. Now, King Peleus is the father of Achilles. So there's so much to the story, and I don't want to spoil very much, so I will try to be very brief in my overall synopsis. But Patroclus is banished and exiled to Thea, I believe when he's around 11 or 12 years old, and Achilles is also around the same age. And the king is known for taking in boys, whether it's through they're exiled or banished or have no parents, like they're orphans, or for other reasons, which is why Patroclus was sent to him. And there were a lot of other boys that lived there as well. So it was a common thing for strong warriors to have a companion that they select that would follow them on all their various journeys and battles that they go to. That was sort of like their right-hand man or wingman. It was expected by the king that Achilles would eventually select one, likely from the group of boys that lived there. Now, Achilles, for some reason, chose Patroclus, and we'll later learn it's not ever directly addressed. As you read throughout the book, you know that Achilles saw something deep inside Patroclus and chose him. Now, this part will get into some spoilers because I'm giving the full synopsis, so maybe skip ahead if you don't want that. But over the course of the two boys, Patroclus and Achilles' teenagehood, they become so close as companions, and they do develop a sexual relationship. It's forbidden, but also not forbidden. It was common for people in that society to sleep with men or women or whoever they wanted, but it was stated in the book that by the time a boy became a man, that he would leave behind his childhood activity, in this case sleeping with men, to have a wife and only sleep with women. And it is explicitly stated from Thetis, Achilles' mother, that she did not approve of their relationship, even as boys. As described throughout the Iliad, there is the Trojan War. And Patroclus took an oath as a child to defend Helen of Troy if she were ever placed in danger. You can read more about that in the book. There's a lot more behind it than what I'm saying. And so he needed to be there because he took that oath as a child, and so the other men who took that oath would not let him not show up for this war, for battle. And Achilles, having been fated by the gods to be the greatest of the Greeks and the best warrior, knew that he had to go and fight in this war. So they both go to fight with all the other Greeks and people from various countries, including Agamemnon, Odysseus, etc. And they're at the war for 10 years. So for some reason, the battle goes on and on and on for so long. Achilles is known and recognized as the greatest warrior because he is, killing so many of their enemies and succeeding, but it is dragging out over 10 years. Patroclus and Achilles' relationship deepens throughout this time, and it's sort of known by the other men and warriors that they're together, but it's like an unspoken thing. Agamemnon, the king in charge of all the warriors fighting to save Helen, he offends Achilles. So Achilles states that he will no longer fight in this battle until Agamemnon apologizes to him, essentially. It brings in some of the key themes of the book, which are arrogance in Achilles' case, because what happens after is essentially, after speaking with his mom, Thetis, who is a lesser god as a nymph, so Thetis was able to arrange with the more powerful gods that the people of Troy and the warriors would have more success and gain more of the Greeks' land until Achilles joined them again in their war efforts. So essentially it would show to Agamemnon, like, you really do need Achilles, because you see when he's not fighting with you, they're gaining on you and they're having more success. But the downfall is when it goes too far and the warriors from Troy are completely killing people. There's like plagues. The Greeks are almost fully wiped out, is what it sounds like from Miller's descriptions in the book. Excuse me if you can hear my dog chewing on his phone, but what are you gonna do? So Achilles is still refusing. He's like, Agamemnon hasn't apologized. I will not participate in the war, but everyone is begging him, like, please help us. You see how terrible we're doing. Like, please come back and fight with us. So Patroclus decides to put on Achilles' armor and to pretend to be him and go out into the Trojans, outside of their city gates to show everyone, like, okay, Achilles has returned, he's ready to battle. And they knew that the Trojans would all be afraid and the Greeks would be super motivated into continuing their fight. And this is where things get terrible. So as Patroclus is riding out on Achilles' chariot, he successfully spears one of the men fighting on the other side. I'm forgetting his name, but it was one of the most powerful men. And so Hector, who is essentially Achilles' parallel on the other side, comes to kill Patroclus, and he succeeds. Achilles essentially had a choice before he went to the war, where he could live a long life but have no fame, no recognition, and essentially be pointless, because in their culture there was nothing better than to have fame and notoriety as a god or to become a god. So he had the choice to choose the long life of no recognition, or he could live a short life, be killed, and have fame forever. So of course he chose to go to the war and have that fame, but it was fated that before he died, Hector would die. Part of what drew out this 10-year-long war was that Achilles refused to kill Hector, one, because he didn't want to die, Patroclus didn't want him to die, and he always made the statement, Hector never did anything to me, so I have no reason to kill him. And it was kind of this joke with him and Patroclus of drawing out his life because Hector hadn't done anything specific to him. So they would do their duty in fighting this war, but not kill him specifically for undue cause. However, by Hector killing Patroclus, this is where Achilles drew the line. So Achilles hunts Hector down and kills him. With that, ultimately, both Achilles and Patroclus move on to the underworld, where they are able to be together forever, but in a different way. This book was so incredible. I definitely don't do it justice by just giving you the synopsis, because it is such an amazing and powerful story about longing and love and life, and like I said, lessons in arrogance and selfishness. And it's just incredible the way that Madeline Miller writes it. Her prose is incredible, and it's hard for me to even find words to describe just how beautifully she writes. So I want to read just a few excerpts from the book for you so you can maybe get a glimpse into just how beautiful it is. So here are just a few quotes from the Song of Achilles. I could recognize him by touch alone, by smell. I would know him blind, by the way his breaths came and his feet struck the earth. I would know him in death, at the end of the world. We were like gods at the dawning of the world, and our joy was so bright we could see nothing else but the other. And perhaps it is the greater grief, after all, to be left on earth when another is gone. And I know I mentioned that this book is about longing and sorrow, and for those going through any grief, like I said, the way that Miller writes is just so beautiful. I feel like she truly just encapsulates the depth of emotion that Patroclus experiences, as well as Achilles to a certain extent, though more of Patroclus since it is told from his point of view. And I'm just so grateful that she wrote this book. It is a 5-star for me, one of my favorite books of all time. Miller's second book, which is published 7 years after Song of Achilles in 2018, is called Circe. There is actually word, at least there was word in 2019, that Circe was going to be made into a drama TV show on HBO Max. So we'll see if that still comes to play. I would definitely be interested. Ultimately, Circe ended up being a 4-star read for me, which it was just incredible. And it might have been a 5-star for me if I was a parent, because she does experience motherhood, and that's a large part of her transformation as a character. So I think if you're a parent, this might be even more incredible for you. I'll have to read it again when that eventually happens one day, but for now, 4-star, it was amazing. So this, of course, follows the point of view of Circe, who is the daughter of a Titan. Now, the Titans were essentially there at the dawn of Earth. They're the beings that are even greater than the Olympian gods. They originally had the most power, and from my understanding, it's kind of like they created the world as Greek mythology knows it to exist. However, as we commonly know, Zeus and the Olympians are the most powerful gods. And that happened because there was a major battle between the Olympians and the Titans, where Zeus and his posse gained control and created, their stage and kingdom on Mount Olympus. Circe, as a daughter of a Titan, is immortal, and she looks mortal, but stays looking very young. It seems like she looks like she's around 20 or something, and she will live forever. So the book actually takes place, it's a little unclear of how much time it takes place, but it starts with her birth and then it ends at a major transformation. And I think it's more than 1,000 years that takes place in the book, because she talks about hundreds and hundreds of years, and sometimes it mentions a millennia. So Circe is a nymph, and she's also a witch, just like her other siblings born to her mom and her dad. The other people born from her dad and other women weren't witches, so something unique about her mom. It'd be interesting to know more about her mother, even though her mother was terrible, I will say. But besides that, this book is a little bit easier to give a synopsis, so I'll try to be more succinct. She is completely hated by her family. They think she's so annoying, her mother included, or treat her terribly. They bully her, call her names. They never want to be around her. And so she finally meets this mortal man who she falls in love with and thinks loves her, and she uses this special flower to turn him into a god. And when he becomes a god, he is like, oh, well, what do you mean? I never loved you. You're kind of like a sister to me. And so she is totally upset and saddened over this and so angry. The man that she turned into a god is wanting to marry this other nymph, and I think out of jealousy, Circe decides to give that girl also the same flower, which essentially the power of the flower is claimed to turn you into who you really are. And so the woman and betrothed that Circe gives this flower to turns into this like squid-like sea monster. She's still immortal, like the nymph that she was, but she can't speak normally. She's not like human-esque in any way, like the other gods and nymphs are. So once it's determined that Circe and her siblings are indeed witches, her father, the Titan, and Zeus meet up together to decide what to do. So her father agrees with Zeus, since Zeus is ultimately in control, that he will not have any more children with Circe's mother, and that Circe's siblings must agree not to use their magic and witchcraft in any negative way. But because Circe has already had malintent with her witchcraft in turning the man and the other nymph into whatever beings, so he was turned into a god and she was turned into the sea monster, Circe will be banished for the rest of her life to this island. So Circe takes up residency on this island where she spends hundreds of years alone. The only company she has are the various ships, mostly of men, that come to the island and go up to this house looking for food as they've had, long journeys wherever they're traveling. Part of this story is described throughout Homer's The Odyssey, through Odysseus's journey back home after fighting in the Trojan War, where they ultimately won, and they saved Helen. Overall, Circe, throughout the course of the hundreds of years that she's alive, she accepts who she is, she accepts her situation, she enjoys being alone after the hundreds of years being around terrible people and family members who wanted nothing to do with her and were only terrible to her. So she enjoys that solitude, and then she enjoys having control through her witchcraft over the various men that come to her island. She is easily able to defend herself against them if they're trying to take advantage of her as a woman alone. She's able to engage in various encounters and relationships with the men that come through her island if she chooses to. And Odysseus actually makes multiple stops on her island where eventually she has a child by him. He doesn't know because he has already started his journey back home, but eventually she gives birth to a child that is Odysseus's son. And thus embarks the start of real change in Circe. She was a very selfish person, very down on herself due to the terrible childhood that she had, essentially, and having no one and nobody around her. It was a very difficult life up until that point. And when she gave birth to her son, it seemed like someone was out to get her. There were always plates falling near him when he was in a bassinet. The animals that were on her island were kind of going crazy. So she was like, okay, these are not just like the normal amount of plates falling off the wall. Like, I'm not a clumsy person. And the house that she lived in was also kind of magical, so it would clean up itself. And so she's like, okay, something is going on here. Some god or somebody is out to get my son. And it's revealed that the goddess Athena is out to kill her son. So Athena's like, give him to me, he's gonna die eventually. But Circe is like, no way, I'm not giving him to you. She's able to craft a spell to protect the island so that Athena is not able to get to her son. As he's growing up, her son's hearing more and more about his dad, Odysseus, and eventually when he's 16, he decides to make a ship to sail to meet Odysseus for the first time. He really wants to get to know his dad, understandably. Circe wants nothing to do with this. She did not want him to go, but eventually she realizes that he needs to, so she lets him go to see his dad. And unfortunately, Odysseus has had a major transformation from the person who Circe once knew when she, knew him 16 years prior, because her son returns with Odysseus's other son and wife in tow, and it's revealed that Circe's son killed Odysseus. I realize I haven't said his name. Circe's son's name is Telegonus, and his brother, Odysseus's other son with Penelope, is Telemachus. I'm unsure if it's Telemachus or Telemachus. I remember reading the Odyssey in high school and I read it as Telemachus, so my head says that, but it might be Telemachus since it's Telegonus. I don't know. So as Telegonus arrived in Ithaca, which was where Odysseus ruled, Odysseus, he had kind of gone crazy over those past few years. And so he, for some reason, thought that Telegonus was there to take over the throne, and he thought he was an intruder to the island. So he went to attack Telegonus, even though he was running away. He was saying, no, wait, let me explain. Odysseus was he was seeing red and he was trying to attack him. But Telegonus had with him this magical spear where attached to it was this poisonous tail of this ancient sea creature that Circe was able to obtain for him to ensure that whatever troubles he had on his journey to Ithaca, he would be able to defend himself. He hadn't needed to use it, but in that moment, when Odysseus was attacking him, Odysseus grabbed the spear and it brushed against his face and instantly killed him. So all this lifetime and journey that Telegonus went through trying to see his dad was extremely short-lived. He didn't even really get to meet his dad because essentially he killed him upon first sight. And part of Odysseus going crazy in those recent years, a result of that was that his kingdom was failing. His other son, Telemachus, and his wife, Penelope, decided to leave the island because essentially there was nothing left for them there with Odysseus gone. So that's why they all returned back to where Circe was. Now, I didn't remember the tale of Circe fully from the story, so immediately I was suspicious. I was like, okay, Penelope is there to get revenge on Circe. But long story short, Athena comes back to take Telemachus with her, saying, okay, I'm not gonna kill Telegonus anymore, because if Telemachus comes with me, then that'll fulfill what I need. I need one of Odysseus's sons to come and lead my charge in this new kingdom that I have. I think it was in Italy. So she says, all right, Telemachus, come with me. But he has seen the damage that wanting fame and notoriety did to his dad, Odysseus. So he says, no, he doesn't want to go with Athena. But Telegonus, even though he's 16, he has wanted a life off of that island, restrained, never getting to see anyone else or see anything in life. And so he takes this opportunity and goes and leads the kingdom for Athena. Of course, Circe is upset, but she knows that he's meant for more in life, and so she lets him go. And throughout the time that Penelope and Telemachus are staying on the island, Telemachus and Circe are kind of starting to have feelings for each other. They have this sort of same aspect of view. They have this sort of agreement, an unspoken agreement on the view and the purpose of life, to live simply, to not need fame, to not need to live forever just for the sake of living forever and not really achieving or having deep connection. And so the book ends with an extremely powerful moment where Circe goes and retrieves more of that flower that she used on her previous love and the other nymph, and retrieves it for herself with the goal of ingesting it and turning herself into who she truly is, which it's implied that that is immortal. Over her hundreds of years of life, she realizes that there's something much more powerful in having that deep connection and living your time and having it end, as opposed to living forever and never truly having meaning. Just like with the Song of Achilles, I want to go ahead and read some quotes from Circe because I just love Madeline Miller's writing. But in a solitary life, there are rare moments when another soul dips near yours, as stars once a year brush the earth. Such a constellation he was to me. I thought once that gods are the opposite of death, but I see now they are more dead than anything, for they are unchanging and can hold nothing in their hands. Circe, he says, it will be all right. It's not the saying of an oracle or a prophet. He does not mean that it does not hurt. He does not mean that we're not frightened, only that we are here. This is what it means to swim in the tide, to walk the earth and feel it touch your feet. This is what it means to be alive. Even just reading those quotes, I get like choked up. And honestly, I have to admit, I was like sobbing by the end of the Song of Achilles because, again, just the way Madeline Miller writes, like her prose is just unlike any other that I've seen ever from what I can remember. Like just so simple and beautiful. I feel like she captures the breadth of emotion so thoroughly in her writing that I was just amazed by these two. So that's actually it for now. Those are the only novels that she's published so far. She's had a short novel, I think a novella called Galatea, but I wasn't able to get my hands on it. Those are just the two novels that she has. I pray that she creates more works, and I hope she's working on one right now, but I wasn't able to find any information that indicated as much, so I'll have to do a little more research there. But if you've read either of these books, please let me know your thoughts below. I will say I saw how popular the Song of Achilles was on social media, and going into it, I was like, ugh, we'll see how this goes. Some things that get popular in social media absolutely don't deserve it, but this is one where without a doubt, it deserves all the recognition. Both books have won some awards and been shortlisted for some awards, and they're just amazing. So I hope Madeline Miller continues to write. I hope she does like book tours and events, so maybe one day I can go and like see a lecture of hers. That would be an absolute dream. But if you've read either of these, please let me know your thoughts and opinions on them below. I'd love to talk about them even more. But for now, thanks for watching. I will see you again in another video another time very soon.